Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, transitions cannot be decreed. They must be co-created. At the heart of our conversation, we need a globally coordinated but nationally led transitions that must rest on reciprocity of ambition and responsibility. Minister Marina Silva, thank you for your leadership. Your Excellencies on the stage, ladies and gentlemen, Namaskar and Boa tarde. The phrase transitioning away from fossil fuels represents both an extraordinary breakthrough and also a profound ambiguity. For the first time in 3 decades of climate negotiations, we have clear language following the science that the fossil fuel era must give way to a new economy. And yet we confront the hard reality that a negotiated phrase is not the same as a shared pathway or a willingness to accept alternative pathways. Each word of that paragraph carries with it centuries of uneven development. The GST's language leaves transitioning away open to interpretation, to timelines and benchmarks and guardrails. But GST also has to be seen in the correct perspective. The design was meant to present a report card on our global efforts while allowing for alternative pathways to emerge. While developed countries need to take the lead in walking away from fossil fuels, developing countries need to be supported in that transition as well. I want to submit before all of you, first of all, that there is not one but many energy transitions we're talking about. Developing countries are not laggards in this story. In fact, many of the breakthroughs in clean energy and climate policy today are emerging from the global south. Whether it's renewable energy auctions that have slashed prices in India or Latin America, to distributed solar electrification across Africa, to innovations in biofuels in Brazil. These are the building blocks of that new growth model, but they remain fragmented. And to scale them up, we need something different, something more than the finance agenda that Professor Stern has put forward. We need governance that is anticipatory, cooperative, and credible. Developing countries are attempting not one but 5 simultaneous energy transitions. First, from no access to energy at all to delivering access to hundreds of millions of people to electricity, clean cooking fuel to 2 billion people. We say these numbers with stoic insensitivity, but this is our lived reality. Secondly, from patterns of energy demand in rural areas to managing the huge surge in urbanization. So there is positive news there. From weak bargaining power in global energy markets to much deeper integration into these markets by virtue of the scale of demand that's emerging from the developing countries. And from fragmented and centralized energy markets to decentralized, interconnected markets that bring together the energy and the digital revolutions. This, ladies and gentlemen, is not a leapfrog. It is not a triple jump. This is a pentathlon, but sporting metaphors pale in comparison to what developing countries are attempting. So I want to present before you a 10-point action agenda for this transition away from fossil fuels. First, policy, institutional, and market mechanisms that deliver energy access via clean energy sources. India has delivered energy access to 800 million people over the last 2 decades. But it's done it along with institutional design, with auction design, with market design. We need to scale this up and replicate these across the global south to bring down the costs of clean energy in order to deliver electricity access to the 700 million people who still don't have it. Number 2, technical cooperation on extending grids and interconnections. While we increase the share of renewables, the planning and the operations will become much more complex. Our research at CEW suggests that India's grid flexibility requirements will increase 5-fold in the next 5 years. The South Asian region, with its complementarities in hydro, in solar, in wind, can benefit from investments in those interconnected grid systems. 3, building capacity to manage the grids. Capacity building must keep pace with the physics of a changing grid. Across the global south, we need joint initiatives to train engineers, planners, and regulators in grid planning, forecasting, and managing the digital, flexible, and interconnected grids. 4, design the power markets of the future by leveraging decentralized energy and digital platforms. Grid technologies can turn consumers into active participants in grid balancing. We can use digital public infrastructure to leverage this. Regulators and market operators must enable this time and location sensitive electricity pricing, unlock ancillary markets. 5, power livelihoods globally. Our work shows that when clean energy powers livelihoods, from solar dryers to looms to cold storages to food processors, incomes rise, resilience deepens, markets expand. I propose a global powering livelihoods facility that can serve as a catalytic multilateral platform to blend risk capital and patient finance, but to deliver power to 2 million micro enterprises across the world and transform at least 10 million lives. 6. Build interdependent global value chains for clean tech manufacturing by leveraging green competitive advantage. The global south has the resources that the world needs: sunlight, wind, critical minerals. The global north has capital and technology. No country can secure its energy future with protectionism. So we can have a global renewables supply chain compact to jointly map manufacturing capacities, pool infrastructure finance, co-develop technologies, harmonize standards, and invest in each other's industries. 7. Diversify access to refining critical minerals, including the technologies for minerals processing. The answer lies in partnerships for refining partnerships, joint R&D for efficient and clean processing, and public-private investments in sustainable refining clusters. 8. Reduce the cost of finance. Professor Stern has already given us a roadmap. I propose a global clean investment risk mitigation mechanism, a platform to pool macro risks, insure them across countries and geographies, aggregate smaller projects, and offers transparent digital access to de-risking financial tools. 9. Establish sectoral technology groups for the hard-to-abate sectors with open intellectual property so that we can catalyze the innovation with pooled capital and shared risk. And 10. Build a green economy. The physical asset can be repurposed. The financial asset in fossil fuels can be re-engineered. What happens to the human asset? What happens to the dignity of labor? But we find that dozens of value chains, from solar to seaweed, can span across the energy transition, the circular economy, and the bioeconomy, creating investment opportunities worth trillions and jobs in the tens of millions. Paragraph 28 of the GST was never meant to be an endpoint. It is an invitation to reimagine how we govern energy, economy, finance, and fairness. Perhaps then, the phrase transitioning away from fossil fuels will no longer be a line negotiated in these halls, but become a new lived reality for our economies, our communities, and our citizens. Thank you. Dhanyavad. Obrigado.